I am the assistant to the commissioner of officials. Dana Pappas is on, who is the commissioner of officials. I'm not sure if Sally will be on. As you can imagine, today is probably a little crazy for her. But we do have Wilson Holland as well. He is the athletic director for the Los Lunas Public Schools, as well as a Division I men's official, working pretty much anything west of the Mississippi. So with that, I'll actually give it to Dana, and she can Dana, actually, will you kind of let these coaches know what we're doing in the officiating world on the basketball side, kind of in preparation for the upcoming season?
Of course. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to see you on. As Wilson and Nate and I were getting ready, we know that there's a lot going on right now, a lot of news, and I just wanted to thank you for your time this afternoon. As you know, we had sent out an email asking for coaches to turn in clips, and Wilson and Nate are going to go over some of those with you this afternoon. And I know Wilson had some plays not submitted by coaches that he was going to go over as well. But the officials have actually been nonstop basically since we got shut down last year. So we've had monthly webinars, sometimes more than one a month, just going over rules, mechanics, philosophies, film breakdown, anything that we can. We just want to ensure that our officials are ready to go when the season does start. They miss it as much as you all do, and they're just anxious to get on the court. But we have spent hundreds of hours getting them ready for this season, and there's been a lot of training going on, and we just want to make sure they didn't miss a step. Obviously, as you know, it's not exactly the same as being out on the court, but certainly we've given them opportunities to continue to educate themselves and do some professional development in what has been a seemingly long off season. So if you have any questions throughout the year, feel free to get a hold of Nate or myself, and we're always happy to help in any way possible. And I'll just encourage you throughout the season to send us film, especially if you've got a question about something that you're unsure of or that you just need a little clarification on. We're always happy to look at those for you. So without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over to Wilson, who's already been introduced by Nate, but Wilson's been a long time assistant to the association in terms of basketball officiating, and he's somebody who I turn to quite a bit when it comes to what we do in terms of training and education of our basketball officials. And he's got a lot of hats that he wears, but he always makes time for the NMAA and the training of our officials. So Wilson, thank you for everything you do, and coaches, he'll help you out, as will Nate, throughout the course of this webinar this evening or afternoon. Thank you all again for joining, and Wilson, take it away.
Thank you, Dana. And I want to, first of all, as an athletic director, I want to thank all of you coaches. Right now, more than ever, those student athletes need you guys and gals. And it is just extremely important that you guys stay positive and keep those kids out there positive. We did get some good news today. And I believe your superintendents and your school boards are doing everything they can to make sure that our kids have an opportunity to get on the court at some point in time this season. With that, I also want to thank some people that Dana and Nate also know that has helped me in my career. One of the guys that people don't know this is not Paul Lawson and Les Williams, but he's just currently been promoted to white hat in the NFL, and his name's Lan Clark. Lan Clark is one of the reasons that I probably am where I am as a basketball official, because Lan was a basketball official for a long time. So it's good to have that crossover. So today we have some plays that you guys sent in. We're going to take a look at. We're not here to embarrass any referee, any player, and or any coach. We're here to answer some questions that you guys may have. Coaches, I want you to understand this, though. Officiating is a tough business. As I informed a player the other night in the game, we don't get them all right, and we do our best. As coaches, you guys are trying to win games because you want to get to the district championship game, and you want to get to the pit, and you want to win the state championship. You want to be a part of that. Well, guess what? Every one of those officials out there reffing those games, they want to get to the pit too. They want to be able to call in the NMAA state championships, and they have to be good on both ends of the court. So keep that in mind. And again, I'm not saying that we don't miss plays, and we're not going to stop trying to get better. But please keep that in mind as they're always trying to improve their skill. So Nate has some plays, and Nate, I'll turn it over to you, and you can set the stage for us, and we can
Yep.
take a look at it and discuss it.
So with what Wilson said, we didn't get too many plays sent in, couple coaches, but that's okay because these are less plays actually create more discussion, and that's kind of how we treat in some of our officials training. We really, there are times that we go 3 or 4 plays and we'll go 2 hours. Obviously this one's going to stay within the hour time frame out of respect for your time, but we do want to thank those coaches that did send a couple clips in. And so we'll get started. So in this play, the play is actually going to be down here in the corner. As you can see, our lead official has his hand up. Our center official at the left of the screen, obviously blue is throwing the ball in. The play will happen right here on the end line, right in front of the lead official. So I'll play it a couple times and then we can have some discussion on it.
That's nice. So Nate, if you don't mind.
Yep.
What was the question that the coach had that sent this play in?
So the coach wanted to know on this play that wanted to know why the lead official did not blow their whistle on this play. And when asked about it, the official said, "This is not my primary." And so, or this is not my area, is what a lot of coaches will tell you all. I mean, a lot of officials will tell you all. And so he wanted to know in this situation, one, was this an offensive foul? And two, whose call is this? So and three, should the lead have possibly still made had a call on this?
So as we look at the play, this could be considered a 2-referee play. If you stop it right there, that competitive matchup is right in front of the lead, although it may be, it's in dual responsibility. And we should have had a whistle on this play. I think of it like this. If the defender would have did to the offensive player the same thing the offensive player just did to the defender, then we would have called the defensive foul. So there is no difference. I believe the offensive player creates space by moving her shoulder and displacing the defender. So yes, this is a 2-referee play. The trail and the lead, and I wish the trail was in the frame a little bit more. The trail's a little bit too high. The trail should have been down by the 3-point line, extended, and would have had a better look at that. But the lead is looking directly at this play. The lead has no other competitive matchup. Right now, this is the only play because it looks like it's the end of the half, 1.8 seconds to go. So what we try to teach our referees is we're not going to concern ourselves with any other area at the end of the period, because with 1.8 seconds to go, this is the only play. There probably is not going to be another play. So we should have 4 eyes on this play. Should we have had a whistle? Yes. I can't answer why the official didn't blow. I can show you some of my clips and ask myself why I didn't blow on certain plays. And I've had that question before. So to answer your question, I believe this is an offensive foul, offensive initiating contact on a legal defender. Any other comments by any coaches?
Any questions on that play? And you know, going back to what Wilson said, we don't know why we passed on some of these plays. That is an obvious foul. This lead official is a very good official. You know, there's a lot of things that go into, especially end of quarter situations, end of game situations, count, throw in, a lot going on, and a lot of times I would, you know, and Wilson can probably piggyback on this. A lot of times when we miss plays, it's because we're unsure if it's in our primary or not. And so to kind of explain the the primary coverage for that lead official and what his responsibility is that lead official has this free throw line corner, free throw line extended, half the paint, and if we draw an imaginary line from the free throw line extended to the 3-point arc, okay, that would be inside the lead's primary. Anything outside of that is going to be the trail's responsibility. Okay, again, something that we've spent a lot of the off season, and Wilson's been on a few of these calls. If you see a foul, it's okay to come help. And so, as much as we try to train our officials to be very good in their primaries and stay strong in those primaries, in those situations, if I had to guess, and I can't speak for this official, only put myself in that official, I'm questioning if it's my call or not. And in that case, with a lot of the off-season training that we've had, it's look, if you see the foul and it's in your secondary, it's okay to help. Come help.
Somebody in the chat put, I don't think you're going to get that whistle at the end of the quarter. I'm going to say this. If it's a foul in the first 2 minutes of the game, it's a foul with 1.8 seconds in the end of the period or end of the game, because that would be unfair. We tell officials all the time, if you try to play God, you're not going to come out well. So call the game by with using some common sense with the rules that are written, because I'll go back to, if that was the defender running into the offensive player with the ball like that, everyone would be up out of their seats wanting the foul. So it has to go both ways. And as officials, we have to have the guts and the fortitude to blow our whistles. It doesn't matter what time of the game it is. If we see a foul, we need to call it, and we need to hit that whistle, and regardless of what time of the game it is, because that's what we do. So unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get that whistle at the end of the quarter. You guys sometimes are right. Sometimes officials are like, it's the end of the quarter, I don't want to do that. That does not make the game better. That is not how the rules are written. And again, we try not to play God, and we need to get better at that as officials. But that's a great point, Larry, in the chat.
I was going to say my name's Nate.
No, I
gotcha.
see the chat.
Yeah, you're coming to the
questions
chat.
about that or into the game situations.
All right, so this next play is a transition play in the backcourt. It's a one-on-one situation. The trail is trailing the play. There's a competitive matchup, offense, defense, and I'll kind of play it a couple times, and you can take a look, and we'll kind of discuss it. So Wilson, really the question on this play is, why is this a defensive foul? And is the offensive player initiating contact, and or is this possibly a little exaggeration of defensive contact?
From the look that I have, and I guess I have the look that everybody else has, unfortunately, we don't have another angle. A couple of things first. The center official that's on the other side of the lead official is running away from a play that's coming to him. He needs to stop, and he can help referee that and probably have more information. The lead that's coming up the floor needs to stay connected to that play. And coaches, what we mean by connected to the play is you can see the lead coming up the far sideline when they need to probably come up more of the lane line, the free throw lane line extended, so they can have a look between the two players. Nate, I'm going to leave that up to you. I don't know if the offensive player looks like they're embellishing the contact. However, the defender, per the rule book, is not legal. Doesn't have
correct
2 feet, got 2 feet on the floor, but they're not facing the opponent. So any contact that defender makes into that offensive player could be adjudicated as a defensive foul. Do I think it's the offensive player may embellish marginal contact? I can't really say. I wish we had a baseline angle, and then I could give you a clear answer. But I'll let you speak to that.
Yep. On a play like this, and this is something that in the offseason we've been really working on, is early and often. Obviously, there are multiple touches by the defender, white team defender. And remember, by our dribble or ball handler rules, multiple touch, so 2 hands automatic, multiple touch automatic, arm bars automatic on dribble ball handlers. And I think what happens is we have a multiple touch early that is passed on, and again, it's positioning for our officials. If we're showing this to the officials, yes, we're going to talk about the judgment, but we're going to talk about why the judgment could have been called differently, and it has everything to do with positioning. Wilson's absolutely right. If this trail official is connected, they probably have a better chance of seeing the multiple touches. If our center kind of holds tight and waits and accepts a play that's coming towards them, then they have a really good look on that inside. They have an open look on that inside. But again, with the camera view, it looks like early in this play, there are multiple touches, then we get a pass, and then this is when our offensive player embellishes, right? Or potentially embellishes.
Right. Go ahead, Nate.
No. And so in this case, and when we talk about these hand checks, this is something that in my games, I'm pre-gaming with the crew that, hey, if we're going to call this in the 4th period, we better make sure that we have 1 or 2 defensive hand checks early, and not pass on those early hand checks, because if we start calling this, and I don't have a game clock in the view, as far as consistency, we either get this early or often, or at that point, and we might as well just give up on it. And so usually the crews have done pretty good with staying consistent if you get it early and often. And when we say early and often, we're talking early and often in the season, because now that if you go to you're in Dexter, you go to Tularosa, you're going to get the same call from a Southwest crew early and often, or you stay home, you're going to get the same. And so that's where we need to get better, is the consistency of that. But the offensive player, that's, again, the illegal contact initially happens at the very start of this play.
And then back to you guys that were on the call last time that we had a webinar. I gave you a term called rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness, RSBQ. If you're asking me right now, because of those initial first bumps, that the dribbler who's trying to get down the court and start a play is not allowed to do that because their RSBQ is impeded. So if we get this whistle and get the first one, maybe that sends a message to both teams that, hey, we want freedom of movement, and this type of play is not going to happen, and we need to adjudicate that that's a foul.
Hey, Coach Kobos, you want to go ahead and ask that question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I said this one in just as many, and I guess at the beginning of games, when we meet with the officials, how y'all take it. Like if, for instance, the person bringing the ball down, very good athlete, very high basketball IQ, one of the top scorers in the state. And she got there because of how smart she is here. Basketball IQ. I mean, I hate to call it a flop because she just knows how to get calls, to get to the line. And so it's hard to see on this on the bigger, prior to this game, we study film and we see, she does this a lot. So, for instance, telling my girls, like you said, can't really cut them off. If you're free to move, it's a foul on us. So push her to one side or the other without contact. If you notice, there's about 3 or 4 times that the head's going back. And I think that's what the ref, saw. And my question was like, do you see a lot of this flopping in this? I know it's a live game. You're going, the call's made real quick, and then later you snapped it. Oh, dang it, man. I fell for that one.
So
I mean, it's all
yeah, Coach, I'll answer your question on that, because we actually have that when I officiate in our league. We have a flopping rule. Head bobbing is part of that rule. If we see you head bob and there's no competition and there's no contact, we'll stop the game. We'll do the flop signal, and that's your delay of game warning. You do it again, it's a Class B technical foul. That will get into your game eventually. I agree with what you're saying. We do have a couple of head bobs, but our officials also, if you come to me at the beginning of the game and say, hey, Wilson, 22 flops or head bobs all the time, I'm going to say, thank you. Then when the game starts, I'm going to say, hey, 22, I hear you like to head bob all the time. There's no secrets with me. I'll listen to you. I'm going to take that information in, but I'm also going to tell the other kid, hey, I heard you like to head bob and flop a lot. So if you're doing that, I'm not going to whistle you for a foul. I just want you to know everybody knows you do it. That to me sometimes stop all that. But those are called fool the ref plays, and we have to get better at it. Man, you should see the stuff that trickles down. Everything they're doing in high school now started in the NBA. The head bob. It's when they when a cutter's trying to cut through and they grab the defensive player's arm and act like they've been held. Or they're coming through a screen, they grab the screener's leg and pull the screener and act like the screener was moving. These kids are getting really good, but I agree with you. Her double head bob to me, and I guaranteed we had a different angle. That's why I was holding off on my opinion on this play. If we had a baseline angle, I bet you would see a couple of head bobs, and that was fool the ref. And to us, that would be considered a flop. So in the high school game, since they don't have that, and I'll let Nate speak to that, I would definitely not blow my whistle, but at the next opportunity, I would tell that offensive player, do me a favor, because you're trying to fool me. You're not going to get that. That's called fool the ref plays, and we're not going to do that tonight.
And he's right. And we do not, unfortunately, we do not have a flop rule. So when players go down, anytime players go down, if we believe in our opinion that it is a flop, there's a couple things. We can either address the athlete, and a lot of times in those situations, coach, I'm going to actually go to, and I'm sorry, they're either black or blue's head coach, and just let him or her know, look, well, why wasn't that a foul? Without, because we're taught not to say, well, she flopped. I don't think you want to hear me tell you that your athlete flopped. But I'm going to say, it's all going to be based off of illegal contact or not. And I don't think that there was illegal contact. I think that the offensive player, created that contact or, marginal contact or what you might have be. But unfortunately, we do not have a flop rule, and it's something that Wilson is absolutely right. The high school game has adopted everything that they see, good and bad, from the NBA and of course college sports. So I hope that helps on that play.
I want to let all the high school coaches know, if you have some information, because you guys watch a lot of film. And our officials do too. Unfortunately, we don't watch the tendencies of the other team unless we are provided some information. But if you watch a lot of film, and if you know Wilson Hollins, the point guard, and he's always head bobbing or he's always trying to create contact, there is nothing wrong at the beginning of the game saying, hey, Nate, Wilson Holland, our number 32 black, he flops all the time. Would you please look for that? There's nothing wrong with that. We're going to say, you bet. And we are going to look for it, whether it's happening or not. That'll be our adjudication or our opinion. But I would tell all you guys, if you have some tendencies from watching all that video, give those officials that information, because you do it anyway throughout the game. So go ahead and do it. There's nothing wrong with that. And hopefully, Coach, that answers your question. And hopefully they take that correctly. And I think that's the way to go, especially at the beginning of the game. Hey, 32 White, we watched a lot of videos, and that guy's in the paint for like 5 seconds. Would you watch that for me? You give that information to them at the beginning of the game, then they'll have an opportunity to take a look at, and then you're just not doing it throughout the game. But now they think, oh, well, now they're just making it up. But does that make sense? I believe that's the way to go. And I was a football coach for many years, and I did that to officials when I saw some tendencies on videotape.
Coach Cole, does that help on that a little bit?
Oh,
I mean, those are.
Yeah.
And those are tough plays, and we just chalk that up to making sure that we try to get our officials in the right position so that they can see if that contact is truly illegal or if the offensive player is just flopping, or maybe it is illegal contact and the offensive player is exaggerating. But we need to have the best angle possible so that we know exactly is it legal or illegal contact. So I'm going to put up this next play. This is a Wilson Holland play.
Nate, real quick, let's answer some of the chat.
Yeah.
Coach Jacqueline Padilla says if she makes the shot, it is an advantage that she got by displacing the defender. Absolutely. And that's why I think that first play, we hit that one right away, because if she did, or he did create that contact to get a shot off and it goes in, well, not only did we miss the play, they got 2 or 3 points out of it. So now as an official, I'm double bad. So I need to be careful. And then he goes, I notified the officials before on certain players, and I get the same response over and over. It didn't look like that to me. Again, we have conversations in the summer while training officials about how we communicate to coaches. And we just need to do a better job. That may be an opinion of the official. My response would be, from the look that I had, I didn't see that, but that doesn't mean I'm right. Coach, you may have had a different look. Again, that doesn't mean I'm right or wrong, or you're right or wrong. But again, we need to get out of that mindset every now and then and say, we'll take a look at it. Or if we missed the darn play, hey, Coach Richardson, I missed it. I hated it. I missed it. And I'm not going to like it when I see it on video.
And Wilson, that's a great example. In fact, last weekend I had a play where, it's an ugly play. The defender straight up, a help defender kind of reaches in, and at the time I believe that she contacts the shooter on the arm, and I call a foul. Well, coach is not happy about it, and so I go and I report, and probably 2 plays down, as I think about it, I just look, if I missed it, I missed it, and I'm gonna go back tonight. I'm gonna go back to the hotel room. I'm gonna pull that play up. And because of what's going on in our conference, I got to see the coach the very next day, and very first play, he goes, "Did you watch it?" "Absolutely," and I missed it. And our officials have to be willing to understand that sometimes they're going to miss plays. But what I did appreciate from that coach is that he didn't he didn't make a big deal about it. He just said, "Okay, fair enough. He's going to look at it, and he'll be honest with me." And we can only hope that our officials are going to be honest with you when they miss stuff.
And coaches, please send in plays that you want questions about throughout the season. Even that night after the game, you may be truly upset, but please send the plays in so our guys can learn from them and our girls can learn from them. Our officials can learn from plays that we did not get right. And Nate and Dana tell you the same thing. They get a lot of clips, I'm sure they do, but send them in so we can get them to our officials, and they can take a look at them and they can discuss them so it doesn't happen to them again, and they can provide the other officials with that information, and we can use some training for it. So the next crew don't go out and make the same mistakes. So don't think you're bogging the NMAA down by sending in plays, even if you're upset after the game and you send in plays. I'll tell you what, we work for some people that'll send in 22 clips. But it happens. So send them in. So thank you, guys.
Yep. All right. And so this next play, and I'll let actually Wilson set this one up since this is his play.
Is this the POV, Principles of Verticality play?
Yep.
Okay.
This one's the Colorado State play.
So
UNLV.
Again, we have plays where the offensive player initiates contact on a legal defender, and a defender that's legal is defined as someone that has 2 feet on the floor facing their opponent. Now that defender gets to rise above the floor as high as they can jump, as long as they stay in their vertical plane. So we're going to watch the play right here, and you guys can tell me what you think. So in order to officiate this play properly as a referee, stop it, Nate. If you can stop it right before the contact happens. And this is just trying to get better. I have to referee that defender's feet. I have to see where that defender actually, and we're refereeing the defender first, if that defender became legal before that player was airborne. So I'm looking at the defender's feet. Was the defender there before the player was airborne? Yes. Now is the defender going to jump straight up? Go ahead and run it, Nate. Sure, he jumped straight up. The offensive player jumped into him. That's a no call, or either could be an offensive foul. I don't think it was enough contact to adjudicate or be an offensive foul. But that's what we call a no call correct. We have a vertical defender by the rule book, and we have an offensive player initiating contact on a legal vertical defender. You guys had any questions about that play or your thoughts on some of those things that may happen in your games? This is a basketball play that occurs at every level. And sometimes what you get to is we have someone going straight up and down, and we also have defenders that'll have their stand straight up, but they've jumped from A to B. We don't see the jump from A to B sometimes as coaches and even sometimes as referees. So if a defender may have his hands up, but they've left the floor, his or hands up, and they left the floor at A and they went to B into the offensive player, that's going to be a foul on the defender. So A to A or straight up, principal verticality is fine. But when you jump from A into the offensive player to B, then the majority of the time we're going to call a defensive foul on that.
And so a lot of times, and I'll actually not defend the officials in this one, but a lot of times what will happen is we have a vertical defender, and with physics, and when you get hit in the chest, what is your initial, that contact is going to force those arms to come down. And so how often have you heard, oh, well, they came down, right? Well, you know, we have been trying to show enough plays to our officials that, hey, of course their arm's going to come down because they just got hit in the chest, and it's we need to see, are they coming down, or is contact creating that down movement? And of course, down doesn't always mean illegal contact. There's got to be illegal contact either with a hit or something that makes that illegal.
Nice point. Great point, Nate. That happens again. You get hit in the chest or hit in the stomach, and you try to keep your hands vertical. It ain't happening. So we have to adjudicate real quick. Is that an offensive initiated contact on legal defender? And did the arms come slightly down because of the contact initiated by the offensive player?
So there is a comment in here, and you know, I have mentioned to officials about, and I would imagine that you're talking about the 3 seconds in the lane, and their response is, how is it 3 seconds? There's not an advantage, is how I'm reading that. So I guess the response by the official, Wilson, is, you know, I'm coach, hey, that's 3 seconds. And the official's response is, well, there's no advantage.
Clearly, my response is this. The days of advantage, disadvantage do not exist in that realm of things. That's not in the rule book. Again, with 3 seconds, you want to make sure when you call 3 seconds that the person is actually standing there, you know, guilty as charged, not on their way out. But again, if anyone says to you, you know what, if they says that, you know, give Nate or Dana a call so we can correct that. That's all I can say about that. So we can correct that. Because if it's 3 seconds, you send the video, then we need to, don't be afraid. That's what the rule says. Call it. And again, advantage, no, well, we don't know if there's advantage yet because there hasn't been a rebound or a shot. So we don't know what advantage that player may or may not have. So again, that's trying to play God. And then when we as officials try to play God, we don't end up very well. So.
And I'm telling you, the communication piece to officiating is probably the hardest element that we have. And I will tell you that high school officials, officials at all levels, just aren't practitioners of communication. In fact, we just released the 10 rules of officiating to live by, and one of those is you know, an official who can communicate well with coaches, players, their partners is pretty much the next best thing to an official, or is pretty much an officiating legend. You know, it's one of the hardest things that we do is communicate, and so, you know, a lot of times these officials respond that way because they don't know how to respond. You know, instead of just saying, you know, okay, I'll take a look, or let me, I'll keep an eye on it, because maybe, chances are they probably just weren't sure or weren't looking. But again, the communication piece is definitely one of the hardest parts of what we do.
And some worded advice, you guys did, you coaches that may watch film, and all you guys watch film, and there's some tendencies, or throughout the game, your best course of action is not to say, hey, you need to watch the 3 seconds. What you need to say is 32 white is in there a long time. Because if you, Wilson, you need to watch the 3 seconds. I'm going to tell you, who do I need to watch? Because when you say all of them, now I got an issue with you. All of them, really? You need to say 32 whites posting up in there all the time. If you say, Wilson, they're hand checking me. Who's hand checking you? All of them. I got a problem with all of them, because that's tough. Give us the number, and we're better referees when you give us some information like that. Watch 32 white, they're in the lane way too long. You watch 14 black, they're riding us all the way down the floor. You give an official the color of the jersey and the number, that provides them with additional information. I guarantee you that'll work out a little better for you than just saying, they're holding us. Does that make sense?
And it's super helpful. It really is, because a lot of times, hey, they're holding us. Well, what number? And trust me, once you give me that number, my eyes for 3 or 4 plays when they're in my primary coverage area is going to be locked in. And I am not saying that I'm going to go and blow a whistle because you said something, but I may be, a little bit more prone to see contact if I'm just focused on that individual. So, those are the kinds of things that you need to communicate, is be specific, so that officials have an idea of what they need to look for.
And you guys have good looks. I mean, we're in a 3-person mechanic on the floor, but you coaches are on the sideline. Sometimes your position is a little better sometimes than what we're looking at. And that's just information that we would love to have. And it's for me, it's appreciated, depending on how the message is relayed.
All right, Coach Coles, I appreciate you sending in a couple plays. So here's another one of yours. I will share this one. This is a 2-person officiated game. And again, we have to be better at 2-person mechanics. And the reason being is that I would say, and maybe Dana can correct me if I'm wrong, but 60-70% of our games are 2-person mechanics in this state. We have a lot more small schools than we do large schools, and a lot of these games are officiated 2-person. Obviously, we do in the sport of basketball, we will have more 3-person officiated crews, but in this situation, we do have a fast break. It looks like a quick, either a quick turnover or something. This is clipped shortly, and we do have a foul in the front court, or a potential foul in the front court, and this is all going to be positioning. And so, Coach Coles, feel free to unmute yourself at any point if you want to discuss kind of what your thoughts or questions are on this.
Okay, so my question on this is, if you let it keep going further. Once she's on the ground, keep going. Okay, so stop here, right there. It's and obviously, the officials while the game's going on, their eyes are more or less on the ball, or not on where the ball is at. We just lost the ball. The white, she's on the floor. Another player that's not even involved with the ball anymore comes out of her way and steps on the hand of the ground. Right here.
Oh, okay. See, and I totally missed that one, Cole. Sorry, I was looking at
you're good.
I was looking at the initial contact.
Right
Here.
So it was a fast break down the court. The dark blue gets the ball first. Number 15 white, kind of getting a little jump ball situation, but it was real quick. Ball comes loose. She ends up on the floor, and the player behind her, you could tell she comes out of her way and steps on her hand intentionally. And so, obviously the number 15 stayed out the game for the rest. One, I guess, dislocated one of her fingers, whatever. So my question was, I know the rest is, I didn't even know this happened until you go back and watch film. And so, and this was actually a couple of years ago, I think. And so my question was, like, for kids that are doing this type of stuff and refs don't catch it during the game, coaches don't catch it during the game, we hear players, sometimes players are saying, oh, this girl's just trying to hurt me or whatever, that's just could be just mad at because they're losing or whatever. When we see it like that, and that could be a season-ending injury, it could be, are there any repercussions that come after that? I mean, can we send it in? And
Well, Wilson,
what are the consequences for something like that? I know the coaches don't have that power to say, you better not do this or else, but are there any type of
actually, I will say, and Dana can speak, I know Sally's not on right now, but over the last 2 years, Sally has been very firm on these types of plays because, as you know, we've had quite a few fights, bench clearing fights, one-on-one fights, and so pretty much Sally went ahead and just said enough's enough, and so she started. Coaches started sending these clips in, and that's when the bylaw, and Dana could probably clarify this, could go from a 1 game to multiple game suspension based off of clips like this. And so I'll actually let Dana kind of touch in on that.
I can unmute, but now I'm unmuted. So in any situation like this, as a coach, if there's something that occurs in a game that could constitute fighting, so a foul is called and then it's a fight and it's worse than what the officials had assessed, that gets sent into us pretty frequently. But in a case like this where there's something that the officials didn't see, as a coach, you can actually send that into Sally and she'll take a look at it and deem what she feels is appropriate action. So I will tell you, in a lot of the films where we've had fights or little extracurricular activity after the play, they have been in 2-person crews. I will tell you that, because there's just one fewer body out there to manage off-ball stuff and what's going on aside from the play. So, in a case like this, I would absolutely recommend that you send the clip into Sally and let her take a look at it and see if she feels that there's action warranted.
Does that help, Coach Cobos? I mean, and there are things in place now where Sally has been addressing these types of plays, not only in sport of basketball, but just in sports in general. And so it really is, sending clips in is huge, because one, as officials, we get to understand why we miss plays or what we're missing. And two, a situation like this is, I mean, I don't even know if Wilson Holland in his game a week ago sees a play like this, but trust me, there's going to be 10 different angles of cameras that are going to send it to him. So I hope that helps.
No, that helps. Obviously no blame on the officials here. I think this might even be in a 2-man crew. I'm not even sure. But yeah, there's no way, the girl's just running. Like I said, I'm right there in front. I didn't see it until I watched film. So I would just didn't know, when kids go out of their way to hurt somebody intentionally like that, if there, obviously consequences, and I'll just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nate, Royce Brown, can you unmute yourself? You had a good question in the chat. Go ahead and ask that question again.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. My question was, I understand why officials want to know team foul count, 1-on-1, double bonus, whatever. But I've had officials that I hear them at the table and they're asking for specific player foul count. Who's in foul trouble on this team? Is anybody in foul trouble on this team? Say it's second quarter and somebody's got 2 fouls. I don't know why that matters, or even if it's fourth quarter and they got 4. Why you need to know a specific player's foul count.
I will say,
go ahead. You go first.
I will say this to you. The reason I'm already going to know that. I don't need the table. But again, if someone goes to the table and asks, they're asking for a couple of things, and it's a crude deal. Say that player does have 2 fouls, and both those first 2 fouls were marginal. They go back and look on the video, and you just put 2 fouls on the best player in the state, and they should not have had 2 fouls. It's not that we're not going to call a foul on them. It's to reassure us in the crew, hey, we just put 2 marginal fouls on number 23. Make sure that the next foul's good. It's not that we're not going to call a foul. It's just we kind of reinforce ourselves that we need to do a better job in case we're not doing a better job. Or any player that may have 4. And it can work both ways, whether you believe my opinion or not. A player has 4 fouls and their 5th foul is bad, and we didn't know it was their 5th foul. It just, what it does for us as an official is it's not that we're not going to call a foul or call a foul. We have to be really good at the end, and we want to make sure that we call obvious fouls in our primary. And at the end of the game or end of the quarter, even in the middle of the game, we want to be good. So it's just some information there where if they have 4 fouls, I don't care how good they are. I'm not going to call a foul on them. I've just got to make sure it's a foul. And all that does for me is it reassures me to make sure that it's credible and it's something that we need to blow on. So whether you believe it, the opinion or not, and Nate, I'll let you add to that.
And mine's actually more of a communication thing. I know that, like Wilson Holland, I'm going to know when players are getting up there in fouls, that play recall, knowing, hey, we've called quite a few fouls on number 15 and we've got to be getting close to 4 or 5. But I want to know when we get to 5, because there's steps that go with a foul out, a situation where a player fouls out. And in fact, I've been caught in a situation, where a player fouls out, but then, technical foul situation and not being prepared and being surprised by that 5th foul at the table. A lot of times will get us in trouble. We either lose the shooter, we lose the foul, or we lose something. And so really, sometimes if I don't know, or if they're asking because they want to protect the player, then yes, that's absolutely wrong. But I don't know if I've ever thought of it that way. I'm trying to be prepared for a situation that might happen, so that I know 15 fouls again, and now I know here are my steps. Boom, 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 and then we can move forward. But as you know, and that would be a reason why they might do that. But definitely, we do see things out there, and it could happen.
So
Okay,
Billy Page puts, so would you change the way you call a foul on a player late in the game because you knew they had a couple of marginal fouls? Absolutely not. We can't do anything about what we did wrong the first 2 fouls. What we can do is make sure that the 3rd, 4th, or 5th foul is a foul that's going to show up on video. And it's not, I just called a 5th foul on your best player. First of all, let's think about this. Why do you guys have starters? Because those are the 5 that you think need to be in the game, or your 6th player, they need to be in the game. Believe it or not, referees want your best players in the game. We do. We want your best players in the game. You know who your best players are. You got them there because they can play. We want them in the game. So like Nate said, it's information for us. We are not, and we're gonna keep teaching that. We're gonna keep learning that. We're gonna keep getting better at that. That's not going to change the way of our thinking or what a foul or a foul is not. No, we're going to adjudicate what the guidelines are. So again, no, it should not determine if the foul's marginal early. If we're not going to call a foul on them, we just need to know that if it's that player's 5th foul, regardless of who that player is, it may be your number 1 starter or your 6th player. We need to make sure that 5th foul is a foul. Because the last thing you want us to do is hit your best player or someone you got in there that's your best defender and foul them out of the game with the marginal foul. So it gives us more information to make sure we're really good and we're going to do a better job for you during that time. So no, we're not going to change what we've done. Most scoreboards have the information of how many players have. Absolutely, they do. Officials should be able to look up at the scoreboard just like anyone. In most, yeah, absolutely. In most arenas, there are. In some arenas, like at Las Unas, sometimes we don't have a third person working the foul and the points parting of the scoreboard because nobody showed up that night. So those players' fouls are not going to be up there. It happens, but yeah, that's a great point. Officials do, believe me, we look at the scoreboard. That's called refereeing the scoreboard.
Yep.
Great questions. You guys are awesome. And hopefully we're giving you some information you can use that can help you. And help.
You want to read that that next one, Wilson?
What next one's that?
The says most scoreboards, the comment.
Yeah, I thought I just talked about that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm sending a play here.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, to myself. All right, so in this next play, this is actually going to be a discussion about, in fact, I'm going to let you guys kind of make the call. You make the call on this play. And it was clipped in slow-mo, and let me share screen. All right, so in the chat box, I want you to either put common foul, intentional foul, or flagrant foul by high school rules and definition. All right, give the chat some love. All right, let's go with the first comment. And all right, Coach Barella, Leroy, you want to go and unmute?
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think just because there's a blow to the head, I think you gotta see that as a flagrant foul. If maybe anything, even with that kind of power to the body, maybe an intentional, but I think that's definitely a flagrant foul because it's in the head area.
Hey, Coach Barella, I'm going to give you some verbiage that we use.
Yeah.
Wind up, impact, follow through. You are 100% correct. That defensive player had a wind up. The impact was a blow to the head, and she followed through with the whack.
Yeah, because I know there's a strong.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know that there's a strong emphasis on protecting the head area at all levels right now. So when you see something like that, you gotta. I mean, if you're the coach of the player getting hit or the coach of the player doing the hitting, there's got to be some concern, I think, on both ends. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Yep. We actually have one individual that said, Coach Zeller, do you want to tell us why you say intentional?
Just watching the video in real time and see contact as such, intentional contact or such until the swing. I thought she was going for a block shot, and hit the head, but I think she intentionally hit her in the head.
Right. Okay. So I'll kind of tell you, I'm the lead official on this play, and I actually, I put a fist up. The initial reaction is, oh yeah, we're going to the monitor. Obviously, we don't have a monitor in high school, and we can't go look at that. In a high school game, my thought process is, boom, I'm going to go intentional right away. Unfortunately, my crew chief taught me a valuable lesson that don't referee the monitor, referee the play. So I could have done the exact same thing in this game that I would in a high school game, and that is obviously throw up the intentional right away. We have the benefit of having a monitor, so we went to the monitor. I'll tell you that I thought the same thing, Coach Zeller. I thought this play was an intentional foul all the way. Not once in my mind was I thinking this was in our rule book, it's called disqualifying foul, but did I think it was a flagrant foul? So when we go to the monitor, the discussion, and in a high school game, we would hope that our officials send, just like we did in this game, send the teams to their benches, come together and have a discussion. Okay, that discussion is going to be our quote unquote monitor. You know, our center official, who happened to be the crew chief, you know, looked at it, and the very first thing after all three of us looked at the play at the monitor, he said, "Nate, what do you have?" And I said, intentional. And he asked the U1, "What do you have?" Intentional. He goes, "Well, I'm going with the flagrant foul, and I'll send this to the boss. If it comes back that we missed that, then I'll take the heat. But we're going disqualifying foul." So this player was disqualified. As soon as we sent it to the boss, she was glad you called us a flagrant. Otherwise, you know, we've got some heat. And in a high school game, similar situation. You know, you don't really see a lot of times a crew chief overrule their two partners, but in this situation, this center official knew from the very beginning of this play, before even going to the monitor, that he was going to go disqualifying foul. I, in my mind, was not even thinking that severe, either my angle or, again, just the severity of the play. And mind you, this is a 25-point game with 47 seconds left in the game. And this player really has nothing to lose at that point. The grade team was losing by 25.
Nate, let's just talk about intent, because Coach Zeller brought up intent. If you're dribbling down the floor and I go behind you and I grab you to stop the clock, right? Intentional foul. My intent was to grab you to stop the clock. Now, there are certain plays where we can't adjudicate intent. I'm not, maybe they were going for the block. Guess what? They didn't get it, and they whacked the girl in the head really hard, and she was unprotected because she's airborne. She's in a vulnerable position, and our job's to protect it. So there are times where the term intent, it's hard for us to referee that. We just have to referee the result of the play itself. And whether she was trying to block the shot or not, she didn't. She whacked an unprotected, vulnerable player in the head that fell to the floor pretty hard. And so we have to base our decision off what the result of the play itself was. And this is even without a monitor. But Coach Zeller, that's really good that you brought up the term intent, because I think we need to make sure that we discuss most of the times where we can't referee what the intent was. We just have to referee the result of the play.
Good point. Wilson, would you put in the chat what it is that you say the saying is about the follow through? And
yeah, that's a good one. And in our rule book, in our high school rule book, the contact is savage in nature. If we deem it as savage, quote unquote, savage in nature, that would be considered a flagrant foul.
We have severe,
intentional,
abusive, savage.
Yeah. And the intentional verbiage is excessive contact. So extreme and severe, or extreme and savage in nature, would be flagrant. Excessive is intentional, excessive contact. So that official has to deem, is that excessive or is that extreme and severe? Okay, so we're coming up on that hour, and I want to make sure that Coach Cobos, because he's pretty much the only one that sent in plays, and we appreciate it. We're going to get your third play. Actually, will you set this one up for us, Coach? This is your at Tularosa play.
Oh, so I know last time we had talked, or at last meeting we got on, we're talking about displacement, and on this one, you know, obviously I'm thinking the official just missed it. It happened right in front of him, but if I get more clarification on the displacement on a rebound, you could ignore the air ball by my 3-point attempt, please.
Okay. Yep. So, all right, here we go. I'll play it, and the play in question is right there on 15 white or the foul not on White, but you're looking at this play right here, right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. So 15 going for rebound. I mean, luckily, you know, this girl's pretty athletic. I mean, to where she can, I just see that happening to one of them, a big, you know, where they come down with their knee out or something. And I mean, that's a ACL pop right there. You know, it just seems on some, obviously it wasn't called a foul, but would some officials that are on here see that as a foul if they saw it in front of them right there?
I'll comment on that play. You have a rebounder who's airborne, who's unprotected. Anyone that goes up should have an opportunity to come straight back down and land. Would you say that's correct? I believe the little hip push by the person in the dark uniform did not allow that defender to come down. Plus, that defender was airborne, protected, vulnerable, and didn't allow her to secure the rebound. To me, that's a foul on 11 dark, regardless of the severity of the contact. You are correct, Coach. I'd agree. We need a whistle on that play. Looks like it's two-person mechanic. Would that be correct, Nate? Is there only two here?
That is, yeah, that's correct. And
Yeah.
this is going to be a play.
Go ahead.
I don't see a third official. No, I think this might be a three-person game. Just, yeah, our trail is trailing a little bit. But yeah, absolutely. This is actually going to be a real tough play for lead to have. I think our trail is probably going to have the best look. Again, we talk about positioning. This is absolutely a foul. If our trail is right here on the start of this S, which is about the 28-foot mark, I'm not sure. That Tularosa floor is about, 58 feet, I think, 70 feet, 60 feet. But it definitely, we've got to have a better look at this. And if it is a two-person game, there's no problem with this trail helping on a play like that. But we do definitely have to protect rebounders and shooters at all times. That's key. That's number one.
And again, the severity of the contact has nothing to do with it's a foul or not. You guys that played the game know anyone jumping, if you barely push them in the small of their back, they're going to go flying. So again, the players airborne, unprotected, vulnerable, was not allowed to land, and the contact on the way down displaced this individual. So yeah, we should have had a whistle on that play. Good play to learn. We'll probably take a look at this summer, and Nate and I, when we're training, this will be a good play to look at. And we'll figure out.
So there's a question in the chat, private chat. It says, is this a lead play or a trail play? Absolutely lead play, and lead's primary. But again, rebound fouls really are hard for lead to pick up, because a lot of times they are watching contact above the waist. Again, our trail, we expect our trail to help with this play. If there is a trail official, if it's two-person, we've just got to look at these plays a little bit better, and we've got to be really good at these plays that really are on vulnerable rebounders and shooters.
This is also the center. It has no problem with refereeing all the way through these players to the opposite block. If the center has a good look at that play, which we try to get an open look and make sure we have a good look at opposite side rebounding, because sometimes we do have the better look, because the lead may be straight line and the trail may not be where they need to be. So if we see this play, we need to hit our whistle, and it's called a cadence whistle. We'll give the primary referee a chance to blow. They didn't blow, then we need to hit our whistle because it's a foul. And again, we go back to the airborne player being unprotected and vulnerable and not having the space to land. So those are great questions.
Yeah. All right. That's all the clips that were sent in. We are at that hour. Anything that you want to talk about, Wilson? Any questions?
Yeah, you guys got any questions?
I got a quick question, guys.
Sure.
It goes back to what you guys are both talking about early on, where Wilson, I believe it was Wilson, said, if it happens in the first 2 minutes or the last 2 minutes, if it's a foul, it's a foul, right? And as coaches, I think that's we prefer that. So my question is, when things are allowed to happen through a game, let's say for 30 minutes, and then the last 2 minutes they talk about tightening up the screws in the game, and what was allowed through the majority of the game is now, now we're seeing fouls called in plays and situations where they weren't called before. Is that how do you guys feel about that? And the reason why I ask is because we found ourselves in the middle of a game against one of the top teams in the state last year, and our guard is pretty comfortable with having the ball in her hand with a lot of pressure, and so she took care of the back. But in the fourth quarter, the last minute, the way she broke the press, the entire game now became a foul. Is that something that would happen in the last minute or two of a game, or does it go back to if it's a foul, it's a foul, regardless?
To answer your question, we have, again, major officiating concerns, or high school have point of emphasis. And Nate's probably going to tell you the same thing, and any other official. We need to get the POEs, or points of what do they call them? You guys call them?
We call them points of emphasis.
Points of emphasis. We need to get those at the beginning of the game. The worst thing we can do for a game is let it get out of control, not calling hand checking, not calling screens, not crawling, pushing. And then in the last minute of the game, all of a sudden we start calling hand checking, we start calling screens, we start calling pushing. You guys will lose your mind, rightfully so. So again, back to our training, we want to get those early and often, because the last thing we want to do is hit a marginal screen with 30 seconds to go that cost you the game. And we ain't called any rougher screens or screens that were worse the first half. So we want to try to clean up the game. Early and often means get the POEs, get the MOCs, so the kids know what the guidelines are immediately. And therefore our game will go a lot smoother.
And and real quick, I know it's already the hour, but the game was so clean. It was physical, but it had such a good flow. And I don't know if that was the reason why the officials kind of let it go the way it did, because it was a very, very competitive game. But then, it changed in the last minute. But hey, you guys were awesome. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and really, Coach Barella, it's a very fine line, because there's those games where you're like, well, they're playing through contact and they're getting through it, but what happens in that last 2 minutes is now your players are clawing for a victory, and that smooth physicality turned into to a little bit more competitive, and it just ends up being bad, and it looks bad, and so early and often, you can't go wrong with early and often. And I think that all of you coaches that are on here are pretty dang good at adjusting on the fly. And if you know that I'm going to be consistent with that early and often, and I continue that throughout the game, you can adjust, but consistency early is absolutely a must in order for that last 2 minutes to be consistent.
Hey, real quick before we leave, I think we want to do another webinar, and what Nate and I want to do is we want to get some discussion from you guys of what you like about officials and what you don't like when it comes to the officiating of the game. Something they may have said, or they don't communicate with you, or something that just frustrates you. We're definitely going to ask you for some of your comments on that, so we can have a discussion on communication, or just. And again, it helps our officials. It creates, so we can have some
content
characteristics that our officials can officiate by. So we're going to ask you guys for your opinion on your thoughts of during the game that, oh, you know what, that official walks around, they think they're too cocky, or they won't talk. We want to open some of those discussions also. We think those are good. So thank you guys.
Dana, anything to close?
Yes, I'd just like to thank you to the coaches who were on this evening. Really good conversation, good questions. I appreciate the sense of humor, Coach Kobos. Thank you for lightening me up a little bit with regard to your assault and battery comment. I was sitting here on mute laughing, so I appreciate the humor. But I just want to say thank you to the coaches. We know that this has been a very strange and unpredictable year thus far, and we're hoping that everything starts to level out for everybody. But thank you for your efforts and for what you do with your student athletes, because we couldn't go on without you all. Definitely want to say thank you to Wilson and Nate for your presentation tonight. I always learn something as well with all that you do in terms of training our basketball officials. So thank you guys and gals for being on this evening. And as soon as we get our next webinar scheduled, we'll have Sally send that out to the coaches. And if you think of something after the fact, please feel free to shoot us an email. And if it's a Wilson question, we'll get it to him. If it's a Nate question, we'll get it to him. If it's Sally, just get it to us and we'll make sure it gets addressed. But again, throughout the season, if you have clips, please send them in, because that's really the only way our officials can improve, is seeing themselves on film, because they may have a tendency or a habit that they don't even know that they have until they see themselves on film and go, do I really do that? And it's like, well, evidently, or you have a twin. So we do use that film in training and evaluation, education of our officials. So know that that's appreciated. And that's all I have, but good evening and thank you guys and gals for everything you do. And Wilson and Nate, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.